Okay. All right, so for this example, I am going to find my page. I'm going to work with this spread right now. So what I'm going to do in InDesign is I have my spread pretty much done here. And so what I wanted to do is essentially just copy and paste all this content here on the spread. And really I want to take measurement of this to figure out what my canvas is going to be. Okay, so I have some stuff locked, so I'm going to unlock all on spread. I'm just going to delete some of this content because this is going to be where my section page goes here. Okay. And really, what I like about InDesign is I can actually take a box and just really use it as a measuring tool here to figure out what my spread is. I know this is 8.5 by 11, but sometimes it makes it easier. Let me clear the guides off of here. Delete all guides. So sometimes it makes it easier to just kind of draw out. I know some people are more comfortable with that. Draw out how big approximately you think your artwork is going to need to be. So I'm going to break it out like that, and I'm going to say like, all right, that'll be like 12 1/4 wide. So something like that. I want my artwork to spread across this area of my spread. So now I can get my measurements here. My width is 12 1/4 and my height is 11 1/4. So I know that this is the size that my Photoshop artwork is going to have to be. So opening Photoshop, I'll just create a new document. I'll set it for custom, and I'll have my color mode be CMYK. I'll make sure my transparent background is transparent. Then I'm going to just plug my measurements in here. So 12 1/4 by 11 1/4. The reason why it's not 8.5 by 11 is, of course, it bleeds over the gutter, which is that center part of the spread, and it also bleeds off the edge, the top and the left and the bottom. Okay, so here is the document. I'm going to go save as. So the first thing I'm going to do is just save this thing right away. Okay, so some of what I'll actually do is create a new layer as well, and I'm going to hit Command A to select the entire piece, and I'm going to fill it with white so I can get the benefit of a transparent background but not work directly on the transparent background just yet. I want to actually see what's happening. Okay, so I'm lock this up. Alright, so what I did as far as the conventional artwork is I took some India ink, and all I had was orange, and I just put it on a toothbrush, and I just like kind of ran my finger on it to make this, you know, splat. And what I want to do is actually make this black. Okay, so I didn't have black ink, but that doesn't matter. So what I'll do is unlock that background layer, and I want to get this on a transparent background. So the first thing I would do with something like this is I would go under Image Adjustments and then go to Levels. And so what I want to do is increase the contrast between the artwork in the foreground and the background. So I want to make sure that the background is as bright white as possible. That's pretty close. So I'll just turn on and off what happened here. I just increase the contrast of that. And then under channels, a really quick way of selecting this is under the blue channel. Since this is still an RGB channel, you can select this blue channel. And what I'm going to do is click this load channel as selection. The reason why I'm selecting the blue channel is because there's more contrast on that one. So if I selected like green or something, the black isn't as black, or that area of selection isn't as selected. So what I'll do is select that load channel as selection button under the blue channel with that selected. and jump back to layers and add a new layer. And so now I have all of this white area. I'm going to actually go to select inverse. And so now I should be able to fill, edit fill, with any kind of color I want. So I'm going to go with, let me do like a green. Actually, I said black, so I'm going to do black. So one thing I want to make sure of is I want to go to image mode. Or actually, I'm sorry, I want to go to image canvas or image size. So it's really giant. It's 72 inches by 48 inches, but it's at a resolution of 72. So what I'll do is actually bring it down to a resolution of 300. So it's at print res, and now you can see the width and the height are changing to about an 11 by 17 approximately. So just hit OK there. And then this back layer, I'm just going to throw it away to where what I'm left with is just this this kind of this dark splatter piece. So the last part of it is I'm going to actually create a new layer, and then I'm going to fill it with pure white. So I kind of have like a sort of a cookie cutter piece now of this ink splatter. So at this point, I can kind of take my eraser tool and sort of just clean up the edges a little bit. I don't want it to look too drastic, so I'm going to kind of brush it out with the with about a 50% opacity to it. So I can get rid of this hard edge, and actually I'll bring it down a little bit lower, 30. So this is partly because the quality of the original photo was not that great. It wasn't taken. The lighting wasn't that great. It wasn't a very professional photo, but I could still kind of work with it. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't need to be like a really high-end camera. And actually, it was a pretty high-end camera. It just wasn't a very good lighting in there too. So I'm just kind of cutting this stuff away. Something like that. And then I'm really just dragging this piece over to my composition and then dropping it in. So let me try that again. So wherever I think it fits, I'll place it here, and I actually will have to just erase a little more out of that. All right, so there's one piece. The other piece I wanted to do was take this marker image. And so here's again another really bad photo in my living room that that really was just a quick marker drawing. This part I thought really needed some help in that the E and the N were like a little big on that. So I liked how it was looking. I just didn't like the proportions of it. So I'm just going to unlock the back layer, and then what I wanted to do is actually go into image adjustments again, and under levels we'll actually do the same. I'll boost the brights, actually push the midtones a little bit there, something like that. Again, I'll go into channels and then grab this blue layer again because that is working out, and I'm going to hit load channel as selection again. There's many different ways of doing this stuff. Of course, it's just practicing what kind of stuff you like to do with it. So I'm going to edit and fill that. I'm going to fill this with black again. deselect. And so that was that new layer I made with black. I'm going to get rid of that. And then I'm just going to take a lasso tool, just hit L, and just very roughly kind of trace this, because my goal here is to just get rid of the opposite pixels of what my selection is, just to see what I'm working with. So for something like this, since I have it all on one layer, it's going to be kind of a little tougher to work with. So let me see if I can. What I'm going to do is actually lasso it again really rough. And I'm going to, it doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to get feathered. I'm going to try and really feather this pretty bad. So I'm going to go, oh, where is that? Oh, select. Select a modify feather. I'm going to see what 20 pixels gets me as a result. If that doesn't look too good, I'm going to... That's decent. So I'm going to then take my eraser, come in again, and just clean it up. Let me go about 50. So a couple of things that I'm going to do to this after I get done with it is I'm going to tweak the size of some of these letters to make it kind of more proportion to what I want it to be. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because I can kind of, since it's kind of semi-transparent now, I can layer it on top of each other in some areas to make them make it more opaque or something like that. So let me lasso it again one last time. And just make sure that all the pixels outside of that are gone. Oh, I have my channels. Oh. Okay, so lasso. Kind of really strange what that did. All right, now bring this in. Whoa, what happened there? Okay, let me see what's happening. All right, I think I'm, Oh, that's what it is, shoot. Okay, there we go. So let me try that again. Oops, there we go. So I had to just delete that. I might have had a mask going on by accident. So, so essentially, like once you cut that out, you can kind of drag it over. And what I wanted to do for that piece was actually shrink these letters. So I'm bringing it into my composition. And let me see if I can get a layering mode to help. Oh yeah. So I'll kind of change it up a little bit here, and I'm going to change the layering mode. I'm going to actually just lasso this piece, but I want to bring it in, because my goal is to lasso like these letters to kind of make them a little bit smaller and more proportion. So just lassoing it loosely, I'll do the Command T option and just scale it down. And luckily they're the same tone, so I can kind of hide it in there a little bit better. And then just hit enter to apply it. And then Command D to deselect. So here's a little part there that I wanted. I wanted to also duplicate this layer. This extra layer, I'm going to get rid of it. So this layer, now that I'm duplicating, I'm going to hide the top one. And I'm going to use this as kind of like a cookie cutter to cut out a shape that I want to kind of give an effect on these letters too. So if I go to Illustrator, I have my pattern that I used on the cover for this, and I have a color that I need to pull. So if I take my eyedropper, I had all my text selected here, and I have this color here on the side with the eyedropper. I just selected it and changed all of these dots here to approximately 100% magenta, 100% yellow, almost. But this vector object, I'm just going to drag it over into Photoshop. I'm just going to use this as a texture, and I'm going to, for this vector smart object, I'm going to actually control click the layer and hit rasterize. So this is going to make this vector smart object, this vector art points and paths based, into a pixel-based piece of art. And then this text layer, I'm going to select this. So I'll do Command A, which will select the entire canvas, and I'll just use my nudge to nudge back and forth to make sure that the entire, all these letters in this noise is selected. And then I'm going to Command Shift I to select the inverse. Otherwise, you can go up to select inverse here in the menu. And then with that layer selected, I'm going to actually hide it and then go to my Vector Smart Object layer, and I'm just going to select the opposite of what that text layer was. And so that's going to add a little bit of texture. I'm going to open up the top layer again. And actually, I'm going to kind of fade it back a little. Well, no, actually, I don't want to do that. I'm going to nudge this background a little bit off center, and I think what I'm going to do is, yeah, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to actually copy and paste that layer again, just kind of give like just kind of like more motion to that. This little bottom piece I'm going to adjust, and I think what I'm going to do is make this smaller. So kind of fiddle around with that. And once you get to a point where you think you're kind of ready to see, I'm going to do some erasing here, ready to see what it looks like in a composition. Oopsie. Try 70%. So once you get something close, get a bit of save. So I'll go in, I'll actually turn off my background layer. I'm going to give it another save. I'll go into InDesign, and then what I would typically do is place it in. So file, So file, place in InDesign, and I'm going to have to find this image here. And so once you select the image you want to place, if you just click once on the canvas, it's going to paste it at 100%. And then this image here actually just pasted and kept its higher quality. So I can just kind of move this here into position. So my bleeds are coming off the edge here, which is good. I'll hit W to hide that. And now I can kind of get a sense of what's happening here. So here I'll know that, okay, this is kind of going to get in the way of the art, and I probably might as well just get rid of these shoes altogether. At this point, I can, maybe extend this piece or shrink it or even cut it off, something like that. But I kind of have a better sense of how this thing is laying out. So I can even go back to my InDesign file, or my Photoshop file then, and then just make some further tweaks to it. So this layer, let's just say I wanted to give it some more thickness, maybe like rotate it or something like that. Give it another option, click and drag to bring it out, add some more. I did want to add some more layering to this by going to illustrate. Oh, I'm sorry, actually, I have some artwork in InDesign that I wanted to use. So this logo on the cover, I have a trace of it. So this logo here, I'm actually just going to drag it into Photoshop too, because I wanted to give this kind of some texture here too. So this part, since the background is going to be white, I'm curious to see if that's going to... See, now I can see some imperfections in the art too. So in this white here, I'm going to actually merge both of these layers together. And I am going to then go in here and kind of give it some more brushing there. And so here, I'll say, okay, I'm going to save it and see what happens in my design. So back to InDesign, I should have a layer. Well, right here, here's that pre-flight panel again. So if I jump to that flyout menu and navigate to my modified link, I'll be able to then update it really quick and then see what the latest on that looks like. And again, you can just kind of go back and forth. Maybe this logo, maybe you wanted to tweak it or something. You wanted to add a color instead of what it is now. So I'm in Illustrator here. You can select, you can tweak, you can do all that stuff to it. So select it. Let me just get a quick one and see what happens. Maybe that, save. So let's see what that looks like. I'll save it in Photoshop after saving it in Illustrator, and then I'll update it in InDesign. I don't like that, so I'm going to go back to Illustrator, undo, save, back to Photoshop, save. After it updates, go back to InDesign, update. To take all those steps into one, I could just drag another piece of artwork in here, turn off a layer, update InDesign, and then see what that looks like, and so on. So you can kind of mess with your compositions in that way. Finally, I have kind of my approach here. Let me get this thing to come high res. My last step is really to get a shoe in there for that spread. Scale it up. And I don't know, I can like under object layer options, I think there's some other colors like red I don't like. I like the blue the best. So there. So this would qualify for one section. It's kind of beat up looking right now, but there it is. It's higher quality now. And so this image, then if I click on it, I can see that it's CMYK, 300 by 300 actual, 300 effective PPI. So this is a high res image. It'll print perfectly exactly like I would see it on the screen. That's because I did all my measurements and adjusted my photos as such in the InDesign, or I'm sorry, the Photoshop document in InDesign. Last piece actually, so I have a white background here on that spread. I actually want to drag this kind of light pink out and have it come through just very subtly. Real subtle difference. So just the benefit of working on a transparent background. This probably could have been cut out a little bit better, but the photo I'm working with, pretty bad lighting. But